For the latest top tips, reviews and advice, please subscribe below.
Hello and welcome to Attwoolls Outdoors with me, Mike. Today I'm giving you a bit of a pitching video on how you pitch your Outwell Moonhill 6 or Moonhill 5, same thing. So we're going to kind of make it kind of short, sharp and snappy with this and show you the process of going through and try and talk with you a little bit as we go. There is a quicker video of this as well if you want to check it out. So if you don't want to go sit through the whole 11-12 minutes of pitching it and then pack it again, we've got a shorter, sharper one which you can check out. So first thing is get it open up. We'll undo the kind of clips for it. Now I would recommend buying a footprint if you haven't already got one with it. Some models and offers sort of include them, so it just basically protects it from the ground, keeps it all nice and tidy. What we'll start by doing is unrolling the tent. We've just pitched it on this lovely bit of grass here, so it's obviously seen better days, but never mind. So first thing I'll do is obviously separate the poles and kind of go from there. Now if we spread the tent out quite nice and neatly, help us to sort of identify the front and the back. So we'll bring that around here. So this is where obviously a footprint helps you to identify where it is on the pitch itself. Perfect. Yeah, it's fine, thank you. So what we'll do now is just peg the kind of the main four corners of the tent out, make sure it's nicely secured. It's easier doing this. The main thing is getting enough tension with it, and if you're doing it obviously with a footprint, you want to make sure that you kind of want to make sure that you actually cover the footprint completely. Last thing you want to do is make sure there's any kind of excess ground sheet coming out from underneath it. Reason being is because what will happen is the water will just bead off the tent on the footprint and then go underneath the tent, so completely almost makes the purpose of the footprint pretty much, well, pointless in a way really. So we're going to pull against it, make sure we're nice and square. Being it's quite a square tent, it's quite a simple pitch really. I think you want to go in with your pegs about a 45-degree angle. Reason for this, it just means that if you've got tension against it, you're only going to put it back up straight and just keeps it all looking really nice and tidy. And then the last but not least, we've got like an open canopy on the tent. So the main body's pretty easy to go for. And the main canopy, we're just going to kind of keep that in line, nice straight line in there. These you can obviously tweak as you go, but sometimes it's easiest to do it right in the first instance. Winner. So once we're at this stage, what we'll do next is we'll get our pump and start pumping up. Ideally you want to start basically in the middle, just because it makes life a lot easier, and it also means that the tent will pretty much stay up in its own accord. First thing you want to make sure you do as well is make sure that valve is on close, i.e. the spring is fully out. There's nothing worse than sort of inflating the tent, take the pump out, and then essentially all of the air, all your hard work, I should say, comes out. It's a good thing as well as you're sort of pumping is make sure kind of the side doors and all the front door is partially open. What it's going to do is allow air to get inside the tent, then just kind of pop it into shape. What we will then do, of course, is kind of zip the doors up when we come to fully peg it out. Just make sure that nothing is overstretched. The doors can easily close. Just makes life, you know, there's nothing worse than over pitching your tent, because all that's going to happen is that you're not going to be able to close the door. So You of course can buy an electric pump for this as well, which generally is not a bad shout. I mean, to be fair, it's not that much to kind of pump up. We've only got sort of 4 tubes, so it's kind of quite simple from that point of view. I don't think it takes too much time or strenuous. Electric pump would be a little bit slower, but you could quite literally sit back, relax, and let it do the hard work for you. So I like to do sort of the middle and then move myself forward, just because it kind of means the tent creates a shape. So you're almost just doing the front pole and the back tube then. I do quite like the pump that does come with this tent because it's a little bit taller than probably other manufacturers, and due to the opening of the valve, it doesn't have an awful lot of resistance in comparison to a normal tent or something from a different brand. So seven psi is the recommendation. Once we're at that point, we can pretty much go in the tent and pop it in place. At this point now, it's worth just zipping up the door, or should I say doors. Someone's managed to get that caught. Lovely jubbly. Just make sure, obviously, you're not going to kind of overstretch it. So we've done the front door. We'll do the side door. Just get it all looking tickety-boo. So last but not least, the last beam. It's just a simple case of inserting one pole and then just pegging and going out. Lovely. You also want to make sure where each time you've done each beam is put the additional cap back onto it. It acts as sort of a second seal, if you will, just to make sure it's all as it should be. Just if obviously it's a sprung loaded valve, it's just in case that fails for any reason. It just makes life a little bit trickier. So we'll assemble the pole together, feed it through the sleeve. You kind of want to get it sort of fairly 50-50 each section. Pop the ringing pin in the bottom at each side, so there's just a little pin that goes into the base of the pole, sort of inserts itself. Oops, daisy. Pole's come undone there. In you go. In you go. It's getting caught. And like this one time, it's quite easy just to stand it up like that, because what you find is then you can just eke in a little bit. You want that sort of tensioner sort of fully out if you can, and then what you can find you can do is just lay that on the floor and just then inserts in, tension it down, and making sure it's equally span. Just clip the pole directly on. You've also got these wraparound guide points, so these are handy to then to this point here. Just obviously keeps everything nice and tight to it, and it also means that when you put them on, when you guy it out, what you find is actually you're guying both the pole and the fabric together, and not doing one rather than the other. Get it nice and even. Sometimes it's easier to put one clip on, then do that. But it also strengthens the actual part itself as well, which is good to do. Perfect. Cool. So at this point now, it would be a great point to, we'll basically peg the front of it out. So we'll just untoggle these lovely little things. I always start with the front and back just to get it looking taut and to get that roof really nice and sharp. Does help. You've got plenty of adjustment in this as well. Again, insert your pegs at a 45-degree angle. So you've got these ones straight on the front. Just gets it nice and robust. I mean, if you've got weather coming in from a certain direction or rain, I'd recommend sort of starting in that way and just bracing the tent against it. And once we're at this point here, we can kind of go nice and neatly out. Ideally, you want to sort of follow the seam line directly in line with it, just to make sure it's as sharp as it can be. And again, just keeps it all nice and ship shape. And just work your way around. There's quite a few sort of bits at the back here, which again is imperative to do. There you go. Just helps to get that roof looking really nice and taut. Always recommend pegging kind of nice and far out the way, just mainly because what it's going to do is just give you a bit of more stability, and it has the option that you can obviously tension it in as and when required. There's nothing worse than having it too short. Merely pitches will dictate this a little bit. And don't forget to do the bottom as well. That way it just keeps it all looking sharp, and it tensions then the ground sheet along the base. You still want that perfect rectangular line straight through this section. But like I said, this part is a bit of a nice and bit of a doddle really, which is quite nice. Again, keeping everything all nice and neatly in line. The telltale sign really is these little flaps here. You want to make sure they're obviously nice and straight. They're not sort of kinking either way. And last but not least, on the side, we've got two more pegs just doing front for the front door, just tensioning that out. Trick with these really as well is to kind of pull it away from each other, so pull it towards the door, so it sort of stretches that panel that way and this panel this way. Main reason because is then it means the door has less tension to it, making it easier and simpler to get in and out. But in everything, that's pretty much how you would go about pitching the Moonhill. Very quick, very easy. And of course, let's move on to how you then, more crucially, pack it away. So now we're on to about packing away the Moonhill. So the first thing we'll basically start doing is by removing pretty much all the guy rope points around the outside. The crucial thing we want to do is basically leave the main 4 sort of corners pegged in, which would be sort of the front 2 and then the back 2. Actually, while I'm here, we might as well just take this the pole out, just make it nice and easy, untoggle it, unclip it, and we can just slide it out. That way we've got only a bit of fabric to worry about at that point there. With the nature of the design of the tent, it's not a bad thing probably to leave one central point just in, just bring that tension point, sort of the tension of the tent forward, just keeps it nice and easy. One thing I'd also recommend doing as well is opening up the front door. The reason you're doing this is so any internal air can happily escape, otherwise you do like one big balloon. So open that up, that'll allow all that internal air to escape quite nice and easily. You can go to the level you wanted to, obviously, of doing all the guy ropes up sort of quite neatly. For the sake of quickness, it's much easier, well, not easier, but quicker just to take them out, chuck it all in the middle and go from there. But obviously it depends on how much care and sort of you want to put into the tent. For the purpose of the video, I'm just going to take it down just to save you watching me tidy up every single pole as I kind of go. Now we've sort of took that out, we'll take the tension out of it and then just feed the pole through. This is where sometimes having a second pair of hands is not a bad thing, just makes life a lot easier. So just be careful not to sort of catch at any point. Once you're at that sort of point there, that pole will kind of neat and tidily come out, and then you can sort of pop it in half and take it down from that point there. Like anything, the more pair of hands you have, the easier it all becomes. What I also recommend doing is opening the side door, just as it means, again, more air can escape. The more doors are open for sort of taking it down, just generally the easier it tends to be. And that goes in there nice and neat and tidy. So we'll just finish off by removing any sort of the main points, so the pegging points on the floor or across on top, leaving just the back 2 and the front 2 in place. The joys of kind of the way the ground sheet is designed is that the pegging points on the bottom also kind of be the ones on the basically the pegging point at the bottom does 2. It almost does the ground sheet and then also the main kind of fly sheet. Now what I'm going to do is open up this door just to, again, to let any excess air out, and we want to deflate the beams from the back towards the front. So what happens is all that internal air is forced forward and out it goes. Again, it's just about managing the airflow, and hence why we've got that front door nice and wide and open. Just makes your life a hell of a lot easier. And then last but not least, at this stage here, we can pretty much take all of the extra pegs out. For the video, we've kind of just used actually some generic pegs. I think it's also a nice idea just to pop the door back on itself. So the canopy really just kind of goes over itself a little bit. Reason being is you want to be only sort of dealing with the sewn in ground sheet section of it. Just keeps everything nice and smart, especially when you come to fold it, which you'll see in a second. Life is a bit easier when it's like that. Also means that beams are sort of fairly straight with the model. So now we've got the tent pretty much down, and obviously there's a fair chunk of air out. We'll just remove the remaining 4 pegs. If you've got wind coming in from a certain direction, I'd recommend keeping it in from that direction, just to save the tent blowing away. Once we're at this point here, what we're going to do is, because the valves are all located on this side, we're going to more than happily just fold the tent in about a bag shape width from this side across to that. Reason being It's then pushing the air all out the tubes, but also the internal air out that side door. With each fold, I recommend just giving it a little press down. This will help get the air out of the tubes, but also again out towards that front door. If need be, get the kids rolling on it, whatever you need to do. To get it back in the bag. You can always use the the poles as a bit of a guide if you want to, but for me, you're always better to go probably smaller than you are larger. Because it's just easier to sort of redo the bag, or do the refolding, that sort of things. Generally the bags are oversized anyway, so it shouldn't really be an issue getting it back into the bag. And we've got the last final fold. At this point here, I always give it a bit of a squeeze out of there. Just helps to get any external air out of it. Plus the fact that when we come to sort of fold it in a minute, you can get a better tighter grip on it. You're not dealing with any excess air. But you can see how much air is left in it. So if we now grab the bag, one thing is you get this nice little clip supply with it. Just basically put it up to the maximum, chuck a bit of it underneath. What you'll find is that will be in position, so when you have to roll it, it's all going to be about in perfect position. So easy. To get a tight roll, I think it's always better to roll it around the poles. Gives you a bit more substance to hold on to, and generally I find gives you a good indication of how wide it needs to be. You see how much it balloons again because we're going towards the open door. Makes it a much easier process to squeeze the air out of it. Clips are in place, ready to go. And jobs are good in. Just got to feed it underneath the tent a bit. And pop it up. Simple as that. And there we go. All done and dusted.